Hello, and welcome back. So here we are. Here we are again. Day number 3. Today has been an interesting day. I was at work today, and I was listening to A-pop. A-pop is Asian pop, and I call it A-pop because it starts with Chinese. It either starts with Chinese and then goes to Korean, or it starts Korean and then goes Chinese. And then if I listen long enough, eventually it always goes Japanese. And then from Japanese, it's French. So then we switch continents. But anyway, I was listening to some old K-pop. It was like 2009. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. It was that long ago, and it made me think of a moment my freshman year of school, or college, university, second semester of my freshman year, where I had an engineering class, and we were learning about, I think it was like logic or something like that, like computer logic. And it was like, anyway, it was girls' generation G. The answer was like G, 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 baby, baby, baby. And it made me think of that. And for some reason, it felt like a really happy memory, question mark. And it made me, I don't know, it made me like really happy. And then it made me think of like, there were times in my life that weren't great. The upper majority of my life hasn't been great. But there were moments in that I feel like I want to cry now. I don't know why. I don't think I will, but I just feel the emotion welling behind the eyeballs. But there were moments when it was not great that were really gorgeous or beautiful or more great, greater than the not great. And then for some reason, I thought about the Nine of Swords that came out yesterday with the Seeker, and how it's the person in the bed, but then there's the one with the light right behind them. I don't know. And then I thought I would read into the void, where basically I've done it before, where I just go live, I read, like, my brain works in metaphors, number one, and I receive things in metaphor, number two. But I was just gonna like go with it, not try to explain or find how it connects or correlates. Probably not like leave the chat on if people want to chat, but not pay attention to the chat and just go. But not today. Maybe I'll do it at some point if I remember. I don't know. I feel like I'm in an interesting spot in life. I feel like life was one thing, and then, and then all of a sudden one day it was something completely different. It's fine. I don't know. I'm just in love with the divine right now, I guess. For listening. Um, it seems like it'll be fairly easy for me to listen to. But that's something that I've noticed. I noticed it especially with Mercury retrogrades, and I talked about Mercury retrogrades before. It was water Mercury retrogrades. Whenever Mercury retrograded in the water sign, which were the first handful of Mercury retrogrades that I experienced consciously, like aware of what a Mercury retrograde is. I should probably not talk with my mouth full, but it's fine. I would first I would have a thought that I was resistant to. I would work through it. There was something that I had to do. I would do it. thinking like that was it, and then something else would happen. And it's like, this is what I just learned that thing for. Every now and then I'll experience that. I feel like I very much so am right now. But I talked about that yesterday. That's why I don't fight it a lot of times. All right. We're going to do this different today. There are 5 cards on the table. There are 5 piles of cards. We're going to go. I would do these separately, but I'm not. So 2, 3, 5, 4, and 1. Oops. This card came out yesterday. Maybe I should just talk more about what I'm going through personally, question mark. Because that's what I was doing yesterday, and the Share Wisdom card came out. The Share Wisdom card came out again. It's the first one. And then Sacred Sexuality. Reflect. Shadow. And Speak Truth. Now, this makes me think of the Wheel of Fortune card in the tarot because it's essentially the same, but it has a wand instead of the sword and like an Ouroboros around this instead of it being this shiny star thingy. Share wisdom, sacred sexuality, reflect shadow, and speak truth. I feel like I need one card to put at the bottom. I could have just pulled the bottom, but give me one card. Guess not. So there's a lot of in the first 3, we see a lot of like upper and lower, as above, so below, as within, so without, above and below, here, within and without, here. Well, there goes that card. And then, so there's something going on like here. And it's like in these 2 cards, we see this. And then in these 2 cards, we see this. Now, this has been a theme It's like emerging from the underworld. And then we have speak truth. Share wisdom, sacred sexuality, reflect shadows, speak truth. Trying to think if I have a tarot deck. Shadow. Give me a second to see where I'm going with this. I kind of want to use the in between tarot. I'll grab it. Ooh, y'all can see my mess. My mess. Oh, come on. Ooh. I'm grabbing the in between tarot because it feels like there's this almost like upper world, lower world energy here. And then sacred sexuality feels like on the in the middle world, there's like this black box. But it's like an engineering black box. And an engineering black box, it's like if there's a system that you have, especially if it's a complex system, let's say you have like a heat exchanger that goes to a tank and then it goes into whatever, right? You can box different parts of the system and it can be like a single unit operation or it can be several operations. And then you just look at what goes in. Okay, all right. You look at what goes in and what comes out. I did not think that that would have any. I did not think that would come back later. Because I literally had that whole thought while I was at the vending machine, and then I said it, and now here I am again. It's because of certain physical or insert whatever laws, there are things that must be like conserved. Energy cannot be destroyed, but it can be transformed, right? And so it's like you can black box that you can ignore what happens inside of the system and just look at what's coming in and what's leaving because what's coming in and what's leaving has to balance out. And it can be for one thing, it can be for two things. And the reason why I bring it up is somebody at work today was like, so like I hear that there's a hot vending machine where you can get like hot sandwiches or something. And I was like, well, it's a cold vending machine and you can microwave the stuff. But it don't you don't get it out the machine hot. And so then I went to the vending machine to get something to drink and some donut sticks. And I was thinking about it and I was like, if you look at the beginning and the end of the process, it technically could be considered a hot vending machine because by the time you take it out of the microwave, it's hot. You just have to black box like it's like you when you put the coin in is where you start and when you take it out of the microwave is when you finish. So actually like the item being vended from the machine, you putting the item in the microwave, it gets black boxed. It happens on the in between. And if you can look at it that way, then yeah, it's a hot vending machine. But this is making me it's giving me like black box energy. Like there's this energy up here There's this energy down here, and then there's all of this stuff that happens in the middle. I think the higher perspective from yesterday is going to come into play here today. Because now that we've black boxed everything on the in here, it's like after we sort of do the macro balances, now we can go into the black box and try to sort of like break it up into different systems, like subsystems, or we can try to use whatever other knowledge to sort of find out what's going on. And I think that's this reflect card. It feels like this reflect is inside of here. And then this is why I'm saying I think it's bringing in that higher perspective from yesterday because of that third eye. Now shadow is here. I think shadow is like simplifying assumptions that we make. Simplifying assumptions and things that we take advantage of as like being true, like truths that we take advantage of, like things that we treat as true, regardless of if it is or isn't, for the sake of simplicity, more often than not. Have you ever felt like somebody was trying to tell you something and you understand the words individually, but the thing altogether just doesn't make sense? I feel like that's what this is. So here's inside of the black box, right? Now we're looking at the inputs because the top is still right. Like this is what comes in, this is what goes out, and then in the middle is black box. Reflect gets us to consider what's inside of our system. But here, that's still there, but we have to look at sort of what's going in. And then it's like if we look at our inputs and if we look at the system itself, there's something that we see or something that we realize, and we end up solving the equation. Because now it's like the black box was actually eclipsing something and it's moved out of the way, but you can still see like the outline of it. It's like you can see where it was. This black box is giving me Andean cross vibes, low key, and the Andean seal. Maybe I should use a different deck. One second. I bought these field Twizzlers. I don't know how I feel about it. I've been craving funnel cakes for years. Probably since what, 2015, I think, when I went to St. Louis and I got one at the St. Louis Zoo. If Eric Sonia, if you watching this, at that time I didn't have a lot of money, and I went to the zoo with her, and there was something that she wanted to go like half and half on. And I was just like, no, because I can't, like, no, I couldn't afford it. Or it's like I could afford it, but if I got it, then I felt that like there would be something else that I wouldn't be able to afford, and I didn't want it that much. And sometimes, not too often, especially now because it's been a few years, but every now and then I'll think about it and like, wow, I was a jerk. But I had a funnel cake there. Anyway, we have free tickets from work. It was like free tickets to the fair because there was another fair. I was like, do I have to like buy a ticket to get a funnel cake? And they were like, yeah. I was like, I can't just walk to the elephant ear funnel cake booth concession stand thing and get a funnel cake and leave. Free tickets. So I'm excited for that. Oh, there were Twizzlers in the office and it was pretty good. So I wanted Twizzlers. Anyway, let me focus. I almost wonder. Okay. So the way I had these set out, share wisdom, sacred sexuality, reflect. Shadow, speak truth. And it's the black box, right? It feels like it's almost like from a divine or guide point of view. Our lives can be black boxed sometimes. I think I'm guilty of black boxing a little bit, or quite a fair amount. Because it's like healing, growth, ascension, whatever. You start in one place, you end somewhere else, and the middle is the middle. So it's almost like when it's black box, it's almost like, well, what you're going through right now doesn't matter because in the long run, like you're not even going to remember blah, 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 blah. Like in a year and 2 years and 3 years, like you're not even going to remember what you're going through right now. So how much does it really matter? While you're going through it, it still sucks. And even if you come out on the other side of it and is a higher perspective that you gain because of how you move through that situation, in hindsight, it can give you a different experience of it than what you had when you were actually going through it. And it feels like shadow and speak truth is like actually going through it. And this is like while it's like it sucks. Like, I don't care that it's going to work out ultimately in the end. I don't care that in 2 months or 3 months, like because of something that I'm going through right now, I'm going to be in a better position later. Right now sucks. And speak truth is like own it because it do. No, I don't know if like your guides, if you tell your guide like, hey, this experience is kind of sucky. I don't know if they can do anything to change it. But you don't have to downplay. Okay. What is sacred sexuality? Oops. Ring the bell to wish them well. Oh my gosh. This is one of the cards I was thinking about when I went for the before and after. It was either this one or the one where they were leaving. And it was the black box here. It's like we see all of this below, We see all of that above, but it feels like there's something happening right here. And that's where like this felt like it was, like right at the center. And so in my mind popped an image of either this card or the one after, with them sort of marching through that pyramid with the tree. I thought Phil Twizzlers would be weird, but I don't regret it. And it's the card of reflection. It's reflect. It's like, yeah, like, but when you look back on this moment in X amount of time, like, it'll be totally different. You'll have an appreciation for what you're going through. It's building character. Oh, it builds character. Also, with Shadow and Speak Truth, I think there is also a part of it too where it's like we can sort of forget while we're in it. Um, okay. Mm. Look at the bottom of the deck. I just put the cards down and I noticed the title card. So we have the star, it's in between the star and the star going into the moon, and then it's the title card, and then the moon going into the sun. Now, I'm reading these from top to bottom, so it was star, moon, sun. But when I pick them up and I read it left to right, it's moon, or it's sun, moon, star. And the in between card is literally in between these two. And that's interesting because both the star and the moon came out yesterday. The star is the healer in the Spirit Keeper's Tarot. The moon is the necromancer. Is this our black box? Kind of looks like it, doesn't it? It's not that it doesn't matter. And it's not that there isn't any understanding or compassion or concern for the things that we ultimately go through. But I don't know if it's like an inevitability that we go through things. Because it feels like either way we get there. Like in the star, we see all the boats and the ships heading in that direction, right? We also see it in the moon, but there's also this person that's just like floating, like just naturally being carried in that same direction. And then the Eight of Coins is behind the moon. The Eight of Coins into the Nine of Coins. And then there's the star and the cloud and the eagle. I think the eagle flew through the cloud and left the star imprint. Eagle is Scorpio. This feels like that speak truth energy, but it's someone with a platform. That was one of the I Chings yesterday. It talked about, it was like the heart that's open to the truth or something. And it made me think of the white wind. So if I had to summarize it, it seems like through sharing and communicating, it's either you can just like take stock in your own life of like where you were and where you are and where you want to be, or you could talk with someone about it. But it feels like there's enough distance that there's a difference. And then with sacred sexuality and reflect, it's like because of hindsight, because now we know how things played out a little bit more than we did in the beginning when we didn't know anything. There is some wisdom that can be gained. Shadow could be like projected fears, like things that we thought would happen that didn't happen. Or a shadow could also be like ways that we sort of like built ourselves up or built something up to be something and then it wasn't. And then speak truth. It's to like talk to the truth of those experiences. So there's a piece in here about the narratives that we tell ourselves. Because it's like if we're less in the moment, or if we don't take stock of where we are, if we don't take into consideration everything that happened as a result of, or everything that occurred as a result of what originally happened, then it's only speaking to like half of the story. And so we're walking around, we're carrying, we're sharing, we're communicating half of the narrative. And it feels like it keeps us from receiving, from navigating into something new or into something different. It feels like here there is some kind of familiarity that we hold on to. But after we take some kind of leap here, or after we close some kind of distance, then it's like we reach the point where we can go like fully into the unknown. And again, this makes me think of that reading with the magic cards And it's the abyss that leads to like light or something. Because it feels like once we go like through there, we emerge on this side somehow. And that might be an important part of our journey. An important part of our journey might be sharing our journey with others. Because some people need to see it, or some people need to hear it in order to believe it, or some people just like aren't aware. Or there's something that we get. Maybe like when we share, I'm the type of person where it's like sometimes I'll share something or I'll be in the middle of sharing something and then like dots will connect that didn't necessarily connect in the moment. And it's like, wow, I never like pieced this together before. Sometimes it's stuff I've talked about. It's like I've talked about this like 10 times that I've never realized that like this was happening at the same time that that was happening and how these two things like played together. There's some kind of realization, but also I'm the type of person that like sometimes I have to talk to myself because my ear will catch something that my brain won't if I'm just thinking about it. Like if I'm just thinking the conversation or if I'm just following a train of thoughts and I'm not talking, like speaking it or communicating it, then like my ear to pick it up to go, hold up, wait, that doesn't sound right. Or like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Like when I hear myself say it, it triggers something different. It involves more senses, okay? All right. I think I'll wrap this up here. I'm at 37 minutes. I don't need to make this any longer. I could have ended the one yesterday when I ended it. When I was like, I think I'm young. Also, some of these, like, I was thinking about this earlier today. I'm the type of person where it's like things have to sit with me sometimes, and my brain will actively be running it in the background. So, passively running it in the background, I guess. And then I'll get a revelation or a realization, or it'll make sense like a few days later. Or as soon as I click like in stream, I'm like, oh, that's what that meant. Okay. Um, but I think some of these are meant to unfold with time. Let your universe, spirit, guides, team, life show you what it means for you and how it resonates for you. So I'll get final cards. I feel like there is the narrative that we tell ourselves and the narrative that we tell others about ourselves feels like really important here. I've been doing this thing lately for the past like 2 days because I've just been like so tired and I've been working so much. So I'll be like back in the lab and I'll just be like, I'll say something like, I'll just be like, this sucks or something like that. But then I'll like try to spin it into a positive. Maybe these cards are just like, you know what? Yes, it sucks. And it doesn't have to be anything more than that. It can just be a real sucky day. And I thought I had resigned myself to having a sucky day today, but then it ended up being not quite so sucky. So maybe that's also important too. Because there is a certain level of acceptance in that, I guess. I'll be like, this is awfully great, or something like that. I'm like, you know what? I'm glad to be employed right now, even if I feel overemployed right now. But anyway, I feel like there is a deeper level to this. as there are probably many other readings on here. Some of them I catch in the moment. Some of them I try to purposefully avoid the deeper meanings, um, but still give something that resonates to the energy. It's for you to take deeper or whatever. I don't have to fill in every single blank, right? Okay. This is interesting because of what came out yesterday. It was what the necromancer and the chancellor, the moon and justice. And it was like they have like Anubis has its set of scales and then justice has its set of scales. The cards that came out for the final message, it's the wheel of fortune into justice. And of course, I laugh when it's the wheel because I was talking about how much this reminds me of the wheel of fortune in the tarot, but it's a sword instead of a rod or a staff or a wand. Now, what's interesting is here's the hand of justice. She holds this scale, but her shadow holds another scale. But there's only like one sword, and we don't really see her shadow anywhere else besides here. Now, at first, it feels like there's movement in this card, and it's almost like a handover in a relay or something, like passing the scales of justice. We also see the visage of a person, the silhouette of a person, of a man or a woman or non binary, gender non conforming individual reflected in that sword. But yeah, it feels like as someone like runs by, they like either grab the scales and they carry it forward or they put something on the scale. I don't know. And of course, like what is this Wheel of Fortune justicing into? Two cards came out. The second card is the second title card. So we've seen both title cards in this deck. This is the second title card. Love that. But again, it's like since I read the top card first, it's the Wheel of Fortune turning into some title card justice. But if I look at it this way, if I read it from left to right, it's the title card and then the Wheel of Fortune. Bottom of the deck is the Ten of Cups into the Ace of Cups. And then it's the Three of Wands into the Four of Wands behind that. Everybody's going somewhere. There's a lot of movement. And again, I guess that was the thing here, right? Like it felt like there was movement along this path. We just don't see the individuals. It's also interesting because this makes me think of the moon into the sun. It also makes me think of the abyss, right? It's like you step into the abyss and then there's light. And it's like, how does that work if it appears dark on the outside, but it's light on the inside? Like, it's a black hole. It sucks in the light. The light is on the inside, but from the outside, it looks dark. Okay. Also, interestingly enough, look at the paths. Is that the sun and the moon? Yep. Oh, I feel like the esoterics are heavy. I guess not in a traditional sense. Like there's not a whole bunch of the mystery is heavy. It's thick. I'm like, what does this mean? And then the next day I'll get a thought or something will happen. I'm like, oh, that's what it meant. Or like I said, I'll click the end stream button, and then within my own sort of like life, the pieces kind of sort of start to come together a little bit more. Sometimes I wish I could just like add something to the live and be like, oh, this is what it means, but it's fine. That's what it means for me. It doesn't necessarily mean the same for everybody. Okay. Again, I don't know. The Wheel of Fortune is turning into justice. Which title card is this? How would I describe this? This is the Lo Scarabeo title card. It's a special tarot invitation. It's an invitation. Oh, it's an invitation. See, it says a special tarot invitation. That's why, like, they're all going somewhere. They've been invited. But I don't, I don't know. I don't even know what this means. Justice in the shadow of justice with those scales. This also makes me think of it was one of the Sagittariuses. It might have been Sagittarius 3, or was that Sagittarius 4? It was either Sagittarius 3 or Sagittarius 4. Because I remember the healer archetype coming out, and it had like the four different whatevers. I think it was Sagittarius 4. But it was like where like it was this mirrored thing, but one of the mirrors held the sword or held the scales. The other side of the mirror was in front of the sword. We also don't see that this arm is connected to the same body of justice, or the sword isn't connected to the same body. We assume it is, but it's left to interpretation. I don't know. I wonder if. And then we had the King of Swords going into the Page of Swords under that. Now, I was going to say, like, this might be some kind of coronation or the handing over, the passing on of a throne, of a crown, of a whatever. It's also interesting that we get three out of four elements: 10 cups, 3 wands, King of Swords. I feel like I was thinking about the King of Swords earlier today. Or recently. And then there's our Earth card. Under the King of Swords is judgment into the world. Under judgment into the world is the Page of Coins into the Knight of Coins. So water and fire are like within the suit. Earth and air are in the court. And then the Ace of Pentacles into the Two of Pentacles is behind this page. And we see that pentacle again. That reminds me of the one that was like in the cloud. But there's something about this pentacle that's incomplete. Well, it's a pentagram, first of all. But there's something about it that's incomplete. You see that? On the inside, there's supposed to be like a Merkaba, but the smaller upper point of the triangle is missing to complete it. Look, this is what she's doing. She's like stamping or etching, chiseling the pentacle into the coins. But it feels like as she's like going about her day or as she's going about her work, I don't know if it feels like she starts to see this on the inside of these pinnacles. And then it almost plays out like a movie. A movie is a series of images. And when you string them together seamlessly enough, we see it as one fluid motion. But in reality, it's a lot of separate moments. And it feels like that is relevant somehow. Because we experience life as separate moments. We experience some things in life as separate moments. And it's only when we look back that we see it as the fluid motion that it was, number one. Under this ace of coins is the magician into the high priestess. And of course, I got to mention the magician now that all of the elements are present, right? I feel like we see this quite a bit. That moon. That moon also came out yesterday as the unlocking Andean seal. But I think another thing that's interesting, it's not depicted in this magician card, but we have that like the infinity sign that's usually above the head of the magician. I know Russ did a reading about time recently, and on the way to work today on the radio, apparently they were like, "We're playing songs all about time." I was like, "Okay." The White Rabbit. I was thinking about the White Rabbit recently. I think it's because I was doing a crossword puzzle. And the white rabbit takes Alice down through the looking glass, question mark, through the well, through the hole that leads her to Underland or Wonderland. I feel like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's just like happening. That I like barely understand or get. It feels like there's some way out of something. I think this was the card that came out. Okay. I'm just like, wait. I wonder if I haven't written a reading in a while. I think I'm a better writer of readings than I am a reader of readings. Because there's something about when my brain, like when I'm writing or typing, I feel like I engage different parts of my brain. And it waxes poetic and stuff like that. And it feels like some things just like flow. And in the process, like I get to like create multiple threads. So like if I'm typing, especially because I type a lot faster than I write, it's like if I'm typing something and then I get like another like a tangent or like the momentum, the direction changes, I can like space and go on that one, and then I can go back and finish the previous one if I remember. But if I'm talking about it, I'm like, sometimes it come back to me, sometimes it don't. Most of the time, it seems like it doesn't. Well, it comes back eventually. So let me change up the story that I tell myself. The stories that we tell ourselves. What is happening? Yesterday was movement and higher perspective. Eagle eye. Excuse me. All right. One last final thing to send us off. Send us off. I guess we're coming up on 8 Lionsgate. That's like a portal energy, right? Okay. Of course, of course. Mm-hmm. Ooh. Ooh. Ah! Okay, sorry. So the shadow came out again. The bottom of the deck is the sovereign. No. Oh, and under the sovereign is sacred sexuality. Look at this. You see that? It almost looks like. Oh. And then there's this. So there's something that it feels like the black box is holding. When we black box something again, it's for simplicity's sake. It's so that we can focus on the scale that we want or the specific process that we want. Looking at specific inputs and outputs or a general inputs and outputs. But it feels like this black box is holding the crown. When the shadow ascends, the sovereign is born. And when the sovereign is born, it takes the crown out of the black box. See, like when the shadow goes up, it approaches that crown, and then it's like it takes it out because now it's not there anymore. See, it's gone. Because the sovereign has it. Things are meant to sort of like teach us things. We go through some things for a reason. Not necessarily everything happens for a reason, but I am of the belief that there's some stuff that I'm going to make happen for a reason. I will be the reason. Because I'm like, this sucks too much for me to not profit off of it somehow. Now, what's with the shadow is soul work. Shadow and soul work gets us to the sovereign. And that's when we no longer need earth. We no longer need life. We no longer need experiences to show us certain things. Okay. We don't need sucky experiences. It's like you don't need dark nights anymore to see, realize, recognize, to initiate, start something. All right. I hope y'all have an amazing whatever. Whenever you see this, I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And I hope how do I say? It's like I hope that I guess you allow yourself to see, witness, and experience all that lies beyond all that you've ever known or all that you currently know and what lies beyond what you believe. Because it feels like something is just sweeter. I think another thing too is with this, and it's making me think of it's a video that Russ did with Thorn, I think. And there were a few videos where it's like the shadows are the key. Because it feels like a lot of times there's this mindset of like trying to eliminate the shadow or trying to like distance ourselves from the shadow. But it feels like the shadow is the only thing that's attached to this crown. So if we were to sever the shadow, we would have no path to sovereignty. And if you think about it, it makes sense. It's like when someone goes to extremes to prevent something, and then they're like, oh, this thing, like it never happens, or like it doesn't bother me anymore. And it's like it does bother them. They just exert such a level of control that they don't have to encounter the thing anymore, which is fine, but the thing hasn't been overcome. And so when it appears, that same loss of control will happen again. And there is no sovereignty in that. Because then that's a thing that like takes you out of your power. It's a thing that gets you to act or respond in certain ways that you wouldn't otherwise. I don't know.